understand what the 7 deadly sins are and why is it so bad. And so for one, the 7 deadly sins are lust, sloth, greed, wrath, envy, gluttony, and pride. So the reason why they're so bad is because they separate you from your purpose. They separate you from your spirit. They make you feel more comfortable living like a carnal lifestyle. It makes it so much more easier to listen to your flesh. Overall, it separates you from your relationship with God. You know, it's so much more harder to hear his voice and go inside the path that he wants you to. And so I'm going to go through every single one and how to counter each one of the 7 deadly sins. And the first one is lust, one that I struggle with now, and it's still one of my biggest things that I'm trying to overcome. Lust happens mostly when you're alone or bored. Don't be isolated, stay busy, stay tired, and stay disciplined. So lust is probably the most important, the most biggest one for men out of all the 7 deadly sins, because lust distracts you from your purpose and it strips you away from it. And it does so much more. Because the thing with lust, it's like your own greed. Like, we're supposed to be selfish, selfless. We're supposed to be selfless. But with lust, we see what we want and we take it. Whether it's, masturbation, I don't know if I can say that. Whether it's touching yourself, or whether it's actually going out seeking a girl and seeing something you like and trying to take it. It's selfish. The second one we have is sloth. Oh, but for lust, the way that you do lust is stay alone. Not saying isolate yourself in a way that no people, like you in a prison cell. It means like keep yourself isolated from the temptation of lust. You can still have friends and all that, but just keep yourself busy. Like for me, I'm still combating lust. Whenever I'm alone, I try to pray. After that, I go to the gym, I'm working. I'm in areas where it's just impossible to think about or do anything lustful. Okay, so the second one is sloth. And sloth isn't rest, it's avoidance. If you don't know what the meaning of sloth is, basically a lazy person, someone who's lazy. And you combat sloth by knowing that it isn't rest, it's avoidance. Move your body and momentum will flow. That's the little notes I got for that part. It's very simple. Slothfulness is easy to lay down. Just before I made this video, I was actually laying down. I was like, well, I'll make the video tonight. It's all about taking initiative. I feel like that's the easiest way to combat sloth. And all of these things we can pray about. We can pray to God about these things, that he will give it to us. We can pray to God for strength. He'll literally give you strength. The third one is greed. And greed is just like you always want something. It's selfish. You always got to take. You always got to receive, but you can't give. And so greed is never satisfied. Practice gratitude. And so, just practice giving something, because I seen this one quote, and I can't remember who it's from, but imagine you have a water in your hand, right? The tighter you squeeze, the more water will escape from your hand. But if you open your hand and cup it, the more water you'll be able to hold. And so I really like that analogy for it, because I never really been too much of a greedy person, but there's seasons and times in my life where I be trying to hold on to something, and the more I hold on to it, the more I realize I end up losing, right? And so the fourth one is wrath. And this is probably the second one for me after lust that I deal with the most. For wrath, anger clouds judgment and respond with control. Okay. And my own words too, apart from my notes, try to respond with love. There's a verse in the Bible, and I'll probably put it up here. It's like, do not let the day end and with you being angry. And there's so many other verses like, don't respond to somebody when you're angry, because it's just not smart. Like when you're mad, you say things that you don't mean. You just say things because you're upset. The best thing to do when you're mad is just be quiet. Don't say nothing, right? Just from my experience, because everything that you do, everything that you say will be taken account for. Like your words have meaning, right? And so when I'm mad, I try my best not to say anything if I'm not responding with love, because I don't want to speak something into somebody else's life, and I don't want that to be come out of my tongue, right? The last verse I'm gonna say about anger, a verse for it is like, whatever's in your heart flows out and comes out of your mouth. So try to respond with love, and you do that by surrounding yourself with love, loving yourself, doing things that you love, reading, writing, going to the gym, all types of things. And those things will flow out of your heart. When you do get mad, it'll be so much more easier to respond with love, or respond with something that brings peace than responding with something that entices people and provokes people. Fifth one is envy. And the way that you combat envy, or the counterpart to envy, is comparison ruins peace. Compete only with who you were yesterday. And that's a really good one. And I feel like envy is so vague because it could also go into like jealousy and stuff. I feel like for me, and this is going to be another thing for another deadly sin, the way I get over envy is just humbling myself. I also do compete with who I was yesterday, but I really don't feel envious hardly ever. So this is when I kind of just had to study on my own. But yeah, don't compare yourself to other people. God has everybody in a certain place. Some people are way older but way behind, and some people, you'll meet some people who are younger and way ahead of people. And so God will move you at your own pace. One thing I learned today is never too late. You know, God has a season. He has a time and place for everybody. He has everybody in a different season. The next one is gluttony, and it's eating. The notes I have on that is eating for the benefit, eat for the benefit, not for the taste, always. So a gluttonous person is someone who's just eating all the time. And I know a lot of gluttonous people actually, and I feel like the problem with that is just they eat for the taste, not much for the benefit. For me, there are times where I don't always want to eat something that tastes good, but I think it's all about self-control. You know, I honestly think it's always just about self-control. Don't go too crazy trying to eat anything that you can think of, anything that you can get your hands on. Whenever you feel the urge to eat something, you eat. I just think that's unhealthy. You know, to each his own. But gluttony is actually a really big problem, especially here in America. I just feel like it's very important to eat for the benefit. Eat things that will benefit your body, you know, help you get stronger, help you get more healthier. You know, you don't have to go to the gym or anything, but you should definitely eat something that keeps your body, you know, more healthy, so that way you live longer, you know. And the last one is the third one that I deal with a lot, and it's called pride. So this is the last one. The counterpart to pride is humility. And, you know, just by staying humble, it'll completely cancel out pride. When you're feeling big-headed, it's a really good thing, especially if you're in a relationship. You know, if you have any type of relationship with someone that you're close to, sometimes pride will arise, whether it's your mom, sister, brother, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Pride is always something that comes up, especially when you feel like you don't deserve to be treated a certain way. And so the best way to combat this is by practicing humility. The next time it happens, you don't have to respond with anger. You don't have to, you know, have this chip on your shoulder. You know, humble yourself, because that's what God did. That's what Jesus did when he was on earth. Humbled himself for us, you know, died on the cross. You know, someone who was a God, you know, someone who was, you know, Jesus is God, right? But he humbled himself to be a man, you know, and he served, right? And so those are my notes. Let me see. Last thing to touch on pride? I'll probably just put some Bible verses up for pride. But yeah, humility is super, super important to combat pride, because pride is so dangerous that it's kind of like lust. Pride is so dangerous, it'll completely strip you away from your purpose and completely put you on a different path. It'll separate you from God, because I feel like pride is one of those ones that are so strong. It was a time where I separated from God, and it was my pride that was keeping me from like returning back to God. I feel like I knew everything. I felt like I didn't really need him and all these things. And it was like keeping me away. I was continuing to live in the world, and it was just so many things I felt convicted over. But that would be the end of today's video. Thank you guys for watching. This is my new channel. I switched phones and I couldn't log into my old account. So Please subscribe and get us back where we was at. And until next time, peace.